On the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz comes an unprecedented exhibition about one of history's darkest moments. Auschwitz, not long ago, not far away, features more than 500 original objects, first-hand accounts, and survivor testimonies that tell the powerful story of the Auschwitz concentration camp, its history and legacy, and the underlying conditions that allowed the Holocaust to happen. On now exclusively at ROM. Tickets at rom.ca.
We drank Alachayim. We celebrated actually because it was extremely stressful.
That's the voice of Jack Hartstein. He's vice president of Canada's largest importer of kosher food products, Altra Foods, describing his reaction to the breaking news that Donald Trump agreed to hit the pause button for 30 days on his threat to slap a 25% import tax on all Canadian-made goods coming into the United States. Altra Foods is based in Montreal. They supply kosher products, including to major grocery chains across Canada. And while they get half their products from Israel and the rest of the world, 3,000 items come in from the United States. Everything from Sabra hummus to Streit matzah, Geffen coffee creamer, and Kedem grape juice. And for the past week, the company's order desk has been on the phone nonstop with suppliers south of the border to see how much food they can get here right away so it can be stockpiled just in case the negotiations between Canada and the U.S. collapse at the end of the pause and the new tariffs come into force in early March. Canada has vowed to fight back hard and to put our own 25% import tariffs on a list of over $1 billion worth of American products, many of which are on Altra Foods' catalog. And the company expects if the trade war isn't solved, those extra tariffs will raise the prices of kosher food for you by a whopping 50 to 60%. A huge financial hit, coming just after Canada's GST tax holiday expires on February 15.
For people with families, people with large families in many cases, or seniors, or whoever eats kosher, it would be a huge expense.
I'm Ellen Besner, and this is what Jewish Canada sounds like for Thursday, February 6th, 2025. Welcome to the CJN Daily, a podcast of the Canadian Jewish News, made possible in part thanks to the generous support of the Ira Gluskin and Maxine Granovsky-Gluskin Charitable Foundation. The kashruth organizations in Toronto and Montreal are working together with other kosher suppliers and the Hasidic communities to coordinate a unified approach to get an exemption from the tariffs. So is the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs, CIJA. They've already raised concerns with Finance Minister Dominic LeBlanc and other MPs, including Rachel Ben-Dayan, who's in the cabinet. Anthony Housefather and Marco Mendocino are also on the case. Canada already waives customs taxes on Passover food imports for religious reasons. On Friday, February 7th, the Prime Minister is convening a meeting of Canadian business leaders, labor unions, and experts to figure out next steps in the trade war with the U.S., including how to boost interprovincial trade here at home and find new markets for Canadian goods. It's a Blue Star panel with some Dragon Den moguls, some former politicians like Jean Charest, and Canada's ambassador to the U.S. In the meantime, the 30-day pause is being hailed as good news, as it will give importers more time here to get organized, including Jack Hartstein of Altra Foods, who joins me now.
It's an honor for me.
It's probably been a super stressful few weeks, days about the tariffs. Will they, won't they? When we talked, set this up, the tariffs were starting on Tuesday. Now they're not. How did you react when you saw that breaking news?
Yeah, we celebrated.
You celebrated?
Yeah, it's we think it's a huge responsibility that we carry by being the kosher food distributor in the country for the people that need kosher and eat kosher. And it's an honor and a responsibility to be able to bring kosher food to the communities right across from coast to coast to coast, like our Prime Minister said. And it's a responsibility to do it in an affordable way where people can afford to stay kosher and to eat kosher.
While we're in this wait and see mode, can you tell us and our listeners how your company's been preparing or what steps, measures you've been taking to get ready for this because of whatever impact will be?
There is only a certain amount of preparation that we could do. There was talk, yes, no, and it just really hit us on Saturday night when we heard that was going ahead. We have over 7,000 products. So we went about identifying which are US made and which are actually made in other countries to which the tariff would not apply.
Such as like Israel, for example.
Right. And Canada has a separate free trade agreement with Israel and the EU as well. We also bring in from different parts of the country. There's certain products that are sourced in Thailand, tuna. That's where it's made. Olives, Spain, and so on. And then we tried to find out which ones tariffs would apply to in the first batch and which ones it wouldn't be in the first batch. There is only so much you can do when you're dealing with kosher food, that because it has to be fresh. Not everything comes in cans or in bottles. A lot of it is sensitive and doesn't have a shelf life of 6 months or 4 months. And we bring it in every month or every few weeks. So we identified the products that we could, but now we had the extra pressure, Passover coming up. And we have to supply the community with kosher food.
So you said you went through the list of what comes from the States. We're talking only kosher, or you also take, is it only the kosher that you're worried about with tariffs or other things too?
Whatever we bring it from the United States. But with the other products, fine, we bring it in. But the main responsibility is people need grape juice for Kiddush, for Friday nights, for Shabbos meals, and so on. So they need the kosher food to live a kosher lifestyle. If we're not going to have diet dressing, they'll have different diet food dressing. But grape juice or a whole slew of other kosher products, if they're not going to have matzah, Streit's matzah is made in USA. And if tariffs apply to that product, it's devastating, really, for them and for us.
I'm just making clear, this is the Canadian retaliation tariffs you're worried about, not the ones Trump is putting on, right?
No, of course. We don't
Right.
we don't ship to the States. We only
Okay. Could you tell us how many products could be on the list, both the first stage and the second? Do you have any kind of ballpark idea?
over 3,000.
That's almost half your inventory. So you must have had somebody working all day and night to get this ready.
Yeah, starting yesterday. Yes, with tariff codes and so on, yes.
Okay, so let's talk about that. What did you prepare to do as of Tuesday that now is not?
We tried to find out which ones the tariffs would apply to and which ones they would not apply to in the first batch. Not everything tariffs would apply to right off the bat on Tuesday. There were a large portion that tariffs would just come into play 4 weeks later or had not been announced yet. So we put those aside and we started talking to suppliers. Can you produce? What can you produce for us? How fast can you produce for us? Obviously, in one day you can't produce, but we started to see what we can do to mitigate this as much as we can.
What do you mean? To
Right.
get it here sooner, to put it on
Right,
the train
right,
today?
to produce it sooner for us. They don't have. We take fresh stock. So what do they have that they can give us, or can they produce in the next 4 weeks for us before the next tranche of the tariffs hit?
And what was their answer? What did you hear from your suppliers?
Oh, some of them said we can and we will help you out, and others said we can't. There's just so much we can do. And obviously, the products that were for next day, there was nothing we could do.
No wonder you drank a l'chaim. How much do you think this was going to cost you? And talk about cost before we move on to Pesach.
Look, to be honest, if it's not cost us, because we couldn't absorb it, it's impossible to absorb 25%. Plus, we should not forget the exchange rate. Because of this tumult, the exchange rate moved between 10 and 15 points. So we're talking 40% increase of prices. It's hard even to say it. Our inner discussions were that we would not put up any margins, any profit on this. Like usually something costs you $10, let's say you'll charge $12 or $20, whatever it is. You have a margin that you have to put on to cover all your expenses and fees and shipping and whatever. Here, we were not going to add anything because of this additional cost. Nevertheless, 40%. And then when it goes to retail, the retailers do add margin on this as well. You're talking an extra 60% or 55 or 50% for products which are expensive as it is.
You mentioned retailers. What did you hear from the retailers when they heard about these tariffs? What did they ask you? What are they telling you?
We talked to some of the big ones and to some of our major clients. Some of them said they'll accept the increase, but they'll raise prices. One of them, one major chain, said there's a process for increasing prices, and we will not waive our 60-day. We're not going to pay you more in the next 60 days for your products, which means that we have to continue selling it for the previous price if we want to continue supplying them. So we have a choice. Either we stop shipping them or we lose big dollars and continue to ship them. So we had inner discussions, but we didn't have time to have major decisions or discussions. It was all very preliminary. Scrambling, a lot of scrambling.
Did you ever consider asking if you can get this stuff here in Canada, like looking for Canadian suppliers, for example?
Yes, of course.
And
We're
is that
always
possible?
on the lookout. We're always on the lookout to try to get local if we can. The problem is, in order for companies to produce kosher food in Canada, a higher level kosher, I mean, with special certifications, we do not have the market in order to have special productions. The only way we can get productions is if we can ship it to the US or sell it to other markets. And that, of course, is now out of the question because prices are going up 25% for what they import. So that very quickly was put aside.
The list for the first one would have been orange juice, peanut butter, wine, spirits, beer, coffee, and then all kinds of other things, cosmetics, and footwear and motorcycles, which aren't
dried
kosher.
fruits and nuts. Grape juice was not on the list, actually. We
And
found
then
out afterwards.
21 days later, it's going to be fruits and vegetables, beef, pork, dairy, and a bunch of other things which don't affect you. Beef. Let's talk about imported meat. I know Montreal has a little bit of a different thing, but Hadar and Shefa, they get a lot of meat from Mexico, from the United States. So how is that going to work? You don't distribute beef, right?
No, not really. Not in the sense of
dairy,
being a
yes, though,
distributor.
right? Dairy, yes?
Yes, limited. But even in beef, it would hurt everyone because a large part of their production goes to the U.S. And if they lose that market, they're going to have to charge more in Canada because that's part of their profit.
On the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz comes an unprecedented exhibition about one of history's darkest moments. Auschwitz, not long ago, not far away, features more than 500 original objects, first-hand accounts, and survivor testimonies that tell the powerful story of the Auschwitz concentration camp, its history and legacy, and the underlying conditions that allowed the Holocaust to happen. On now exclusively at ROM. Tickets at rom.ca.
Okay, so we're talking about that you dodged a bullet for now. Can we talk about Passover? Because obviously people have put their orders in for Passover now, even, or before, right?
Not our customers. We have our orders in and we have merchandise coming in already. Our customers have not placed Passover orders yet. That's only starts in a few weeks.
So if the tariffs would have come in or do still come in, how is Passover going to look for you?
It's a huge challenge at any time they come in. But Passover, we do have some products in already, but from the U.S. because it's close, those products have not come in yet. Some of it isn't even ready yet. I guess we would bring in whatever we can. It would involve a lot of logistical headaches, nightmares, and what do we do the day after?
What does that mean? What do we do the day after?
After Passover, we supply kosher a whole year.
Don't Passover products have an exemption, though, usually?
Known for duty, but not for tariff. We looked into that as well. Not for tariffs.
All right. What about government intervention or CIJA or the MK or some of that? Have you heard if there's any lobbying going on to remove Jewish products from this war?
We started some discussions on our own, but it was too preliminary and too short to get our anywhere past the start line. So that doesn't happen in a day.
So this would be with federal MPs, perhaps?
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct. This isn't a political discussion, but I blame this whole thing on our outgoing prime minister because of the way he treated Trump the last time around. Actually, we had a funny discussion amongst ourselves, and we said, even with all what's going on, if we were Americans, would we still vote for Trump because of what he did, what he's doing now? And the consensus around the table, I have to tell you, was we would still vote for Trump no matter what because of what he's doing on the other side, how he is for Israel. So it's not a political discussion, but at the end of the day, you take him with his faults and with his mishigas, but at the end of the day, as Jews, we have to look as what's good for the Jews and for Israel and for our brothers. And here in Canada, when we're dealing, you're saying if we're talking with MPs, yes, we try talking to MPs, but MPs, what Jewish MPs have a word with the prime minister?
But I want to just quickly end on what steps in your office are you going to be taking? Are you still going to have people get stuff here early? Because that's going to cost you trucks and drivers and money. You're going to have to spend money anyway, right? I just want to or are you just waiting and seeing?
No, we're going to do whatever we can to mitigate the risk and to try to bring whatever we can for Passover as soon as possible. We'll hurry it up. And we'll try to identify which products could get hit first to bring those in first. We're going to continue to be proactive, but thank God that it's not like a sword over our heads right here and there with no time to react.
Do you think that this is going to go away and it'll just be a bad nightmare? Or like what do you want?
We have to get ready. We have to do whatever we can. Obviously, if it wakes up again in 30 days, we have to try to be as ready as we can. Not that we could be ready enough. But my personal belief is that in 30 days, Trudeau is going to be closer to retirement. And I think Trump is going to realize that I've punished him enough. And I don't need to do anything for Canada now. I'm going to wait for the next prime minister, whoever it is. And if it's someone who he can work with and who he respects, I think we'll stop hearing about this 51st state story. And he'll start saying he wants Israel for a 51st state, maybe.
That would be a story. You've been through this before, though. I know in 2018, you spoke to the CIJA and they had tariffs July 1st. It was 10%, though, much limited. It wasn't 25%.
But it was on an extremely limited amount of products. And at the time, 10%, we ate it up. We didn't pass it along at the time. But with 25% and 10% exchange on top of that, it's impossible to swallow it yourself. And we knew that was temporary. We didn't know how long it was going to last. Lasted longer than we expected. So we made the conscientious decision that we'll eat it. We thought it was going to be 2-3 months. It ended up being much longer, but we ate that.
Is there anything you would like our listeners to know? I'm sure they're listening very carefully because they're very worried about even like restaurants, kosher restaurants here in our city have been putting stuff on social media that they're worried, where they're going to get their stuff and Pesach.
All I can say is we have to remember that the one who is the captain of the boat is not Trump. It's not Trudeau. It's the one above. It's a message, and we have to pray And of course, we have to do whatever we have to do. But we always have to think and pray and not take things for granted and note that there's someone up there who's looking out for our welfare.
And I guess we're going to have a different kind of menu coming forward, local products.
Look, whatever's good for the community is good for us. I'm a consumer as well.
Thank you so much for being on the CJN Daily. We'll be in touch again.
Let's hope under different circumstances.
Thanks. Now, we put in a call to Mahadran Meats to see how they're coping, as not only do they export kosher meat to the United States, but they bring in meat from Mexico. We didn't hear back yet. We also didn't hear back from the Liquor Control Board of Ontario whether their kosher wine and liquor imports, like Manischewitz wine and wine from California, could be affected, especially ahead of Passover. Meanwhile, in Montreal, Fairmount Bagels has started baking up a new flavor this week to show the neighbors to the south that Canada can't be pushed around. It's a bagel with red strips, no seeds of any kind, and it's 1.5 times bigger than the usual size. I love that. And that's what Jewish Canada sounds like for this episode of the CJN Daily, made possible in part thanks to the generous support of the Ira Gluskin and Maxine Granovsky Gluskin Charitable Foundation. Our show is produced by Zachary Judah Kaufman. The executive producer is Michael Freeman, and our music is by Dov Beck-Levine. Thanks for listening.
On the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz comes an unprecedented exhibition about one of history's darkest moments. Auschwitz, Not Long Ago, Not Far Away, features more than 500 original objects, first-hand accounts, and survivor testimonies that tell the powerful story of the Auschwitz concentration camp, its history and legacy, and the underlying conditions that allowed the Holocaust to happen. On now exclusively at ROM. Tickets at rom.ca.